The rain was heavy that night. It fell on the metal roofs of the old city, making a loud drumming sound. The streets were empty, and dirty water ran down the cracked roads. Neon lights flickered in the darkness, and the cold wind made the trash on the ground dance like little ghosts. Inside a small broken building, a man named Ethan was fixing a small generator. He was a mechanic living alone in this ruined part of the city. His hands were rough, and his eyes were tired. The world was hard now, ever since the aliens took control of Earth. People lived in fear, hiding from the patrols and scanners that moved in the skies. Ethan wiped the sweat from his forehead. He stood up and stretched, feeling the pain in his back. The rain made the night feel longer, and he was about to sit down when he heard it knock. Knock. It was soft, almost hidden by the rain, but clear enough to make Ethan freeze. Who would knock on his door at this hour? He slowly moved to the door and listened. There it was again. Knock. Ethan's heart beat faster. It could be a trap. Maybe the alien enforcers were testing him, seeing if he was hiding something. Or maybe it was a thief. But then he heard something else, a soft, weak voice. Please. Help. Ethan's hand shook as he opened the rusty door. Just a little. What he saw made him stop. There, standing in the cold rain, was a young girl. She looked around 16 or 17, with long, wet silver hair sticking to her face. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and she was shaking from the cold. But the thing that caught Ethan's attention was her eyes. They glowed softly in the dark, a pale blue light, like the glow of the moon on water. Please, she said again, her voice weak. I need shelter. Ethan looked around the empty street. If the patrol saw her here, she would be taken away. He knew what the aliens did to people like her, people who were different. Who are you? Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice calm. My name is Lyra, she said, her lips trembling. I have nowhere to go. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. He knew he should close the door and tell her to leave. Helping her could bring danger to him. But as he looked at her, he saw the fear in her glowing eyes, and he saw how thin and weak she looked. Come in, Ethan said quietly. Lyra stepped inside, water dripping from her clothes onto the floor. She looked around the small room, seeing the tools and parts scattered everywhere. She hugged herself, trying to stop her shaking. Ethan closed the door quickly and locked it. He handed her a small towel, and she took it with shaking hands. Thank you, she whispered. Ethan nodded but said nothing. He went to the small heater in the corner and turned it on. A small orange light filled the room with a bit of warmth. Lyra sat near it, holding her hands close to the heat. For a moment, there was silence. The rain continued to fall outside, and the soft hum of the heater filled the room. Ethan watched her carefully. Her silver hair and glowing eyes were not normal. She was not fully human. She was a hybrid, one of the children born from the alien experiments on Earth. The aliens called them property. The humans called them cursed. Are you hungry? Ethan asked. Lyra looked up, and for the first time, Ethan saw tears in her eyes. She nodded slowly. Ethan went to the small shelf and took out a piece of dry bread and a cup of water. He gave it to her, and she took it with both hands, eating carefully, like she had not eaten in days. Thank you, she said again, her voice soft. Ethan sat down on a small chair, watching her. He wanted to ask her why she was running, what she was hiding from. But he could see she was tired, and he decided to wait. As she finished eating, Lyra slowly pulled up the sleeve of her torn jacket. Ethan's eyes widened as he saw strange marks on her arm, thin glowing lines like circuits moving slowly under her skin. What is that? Ethan whispered. Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with fear. They are looking for me, she said softly. Because of this. Before Ethan could ask more, the sound of a patrol ship moved over the building. Red lights flashed through The broken window for a moment, scanning the area. Lyra's eyes widened with fear, and she hid behind the heater, covering her mouth to stop her breathing from being heard. Ethan moved to the window, watching the red lights pass. The ship moved on, and the lights disappeared into the rainy night. Ethan turned back to Lyra, who was shaking, tears falling down her face. She looked so small, so alone. At that moment, Ethan made a choice. He knew helping her could bring danger, but he could not leave her alone in this cruel world. "It's okay," Ethan said softly. "You can stay here." Lyra looked up, and for a moment, a small thankful smile appeared on her tired face. Outside, the rain continued to fall, and the city remained dark. But inside that small room, a small light of hope had begun to shine. Rain had stopped by morning, but the sky was still dark and heavy with clouds. The city felt quiet, too quiet, as if it was waiting for something to happen. Inside Ethan's small room, Lyra sat near the heater, holding the warm cup Ethan had given her. Steam rose slowly from the cup, and she breathed it in, her eyes half closed, as if she was trying to remember what safety felt like. Ethan watched her from across the room. He was fixing a broken drone on his workbench, but his eyes kept moving back to the girl. Her silver hair was dry now, falling softly around her thin face. The glowing lines on her arm were hidden under her sleeve again. But Ethan could not forget what he had seen. "Lyra," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I need to know what those marks are." Lyra looked down, her fingers tightening around the cup. She didn't answer. Ethan sighed. "If I'm going to help you, I need to know what I'm hiding." For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the heater. Lyra's glowing blue eyes slowly lifted to meet Ethan's. "They put something inside me," she said softly. "Who did?" Ethan asked. "The aliens," Lyra whispered. Her hands were shaking now. "They call it a seed. It's a crystal. It's inside my body, connected to my blood. They said it's their property." Ethan felt a chill run through him. "Why did they put it in you?" "They wanted to use it to control others," Lyra said, tears building in her eyes. "But I ran away. I don't want to be their weapon." Ethan stood quietly, looking at her. She was just a child, but now he understood why the patrols were searching for her. "What happens if they find you?" Ethan asked. "They will cut it out of me," Lyra said, her voice breaking. "And then they will kill me." Silence filled the room again. Lyra put down the cup and pulled her knees to her chest, hugging herself tightly. Ethan wanted to say something, but he didn't know what words would help. So he went to the small shelf and took out a clean bandage and a small jar of healing cream. "Let me see your arm," Ethan said softly. Lyra looked up, her eyes wide with fear. But slowly, she pulled up her sleeve, revealing the glowing lines again. Ethan could see small cuts and bruises around them, as if she had fallen many times while running. He opened the jar and gently put the cream on the wounds. Lyra flinched, but she did not pull away. Her skin was cold, and Ethan felt how thin her arm was under his rough hands. "You're safe here," Ethan said, wrapping the bandage around her arm carefully. Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with tears. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan paused. It was a question he had been asking himself since last night. He thought about the empty room, the broken city, the fear that lived in every human's heart under alien rule. He thought about how he had been surviving, not living, for so long. "Because you don't deserve to be alone," Ethan said quietly. Lyra's lips trembled, and she lowered her eyes. A tear fell onto the bandage, making a small dark spot on the white cloth. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the room. The lights flickered, and Ethan's small scanner on the table started to beep. "Patrol ships." Ethan moved to the window quickly, peeking through the small crack. In the sky, 2 patrol ships hovered, scanning the streets below with red searchlights. The scanner beeped faster, showing that the ships were searching for something nearby. Lyra's eyes widened with fear. She moved away from the window, hiding. Behind the small heater. "Don't let them take me," she whispered, her voice shaking. Ethan grabbed his scanner, checking the signals. The ships were moving closer, their lights scanning every corner of the street. He looked at Lyra, who was now trembling, covering her glowing eyes with her hands. "It's okay," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice calm. "They won't find you." But even as he said it, the lights outside flashed into his window, and a robotic voice echoed in the street. "Scan complete. Illegal energy signature detected." Lyra gasped, and Ethan felt his heart pound. He turned off the heater quickly, plunging the room into cold silence. He grabbed a heavy metal panel and pushed it against the window, blocking the red lights. Outside, the patrol ship hovered, its engine rumbling like a growl. Ethan could see the shadows moving in the street, scanning, searching. Lyra held her breath, tears falling down her face. She clutched the bandaged arm tightly, the glowing lines pulsing softly under the cloth. Ethan moved beside her, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Don't move," he whispered. The shadows passed by the window. The beeping of Ethan's scanner slowed down. The ship hovered for a moment, then slowly moved away, its red lights fading into the misty air. Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Lyra opened her eyes, looking at him with fear and relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan nodded, but inside, he knew things had just become more dangerous. The patrols had detected her energy. They would come back, searching hard. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat near the window, watching the empty street under the pale light of dawn. The city was quiet, but he knew the silence was a lie. Somewhere the alien patrols were scanning, searching for the energy signature. They had detected. Lyra slept on a small blanket near the heater, curled up like a frightened kitten. Her silver hair covered her face, and her breathing was soft. But even in sleep, her fingers clutched her bandaged arm tightly. Ethan's mind was full of questions. Why was she so important to the aliens? What did they want to do with her? And why did he feel this strange need to protect her, even when it meant risking his own life? As the sun rose, weak and pale through the dirty clouds, Lyra opened her eyes. She looked around, confused for a moment, before remembering where she was. Her glowing blue eyes met Ethan's tired gaze. "Good morning," Ethan said softly. Lyra sat up slowly. "Are they gone?" "For now," Ethan replied, "but they will come back." Lyra lowered her eyes, guilt and fear on her face. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to bring danger to you." Ethan shook his head. "You didn't choose this, but we need to leave. It's not safe here anymore." Lyra looked at him, her eyes wide. "Leave? Go where?" Ethan stood and started packing a small bag with tools, water, and a few food packs. There are old tunnels under the city. Smugglers used them before the aliens tightened security. "We can hide there." Lyra stood up, hugging her thin body. "They will find us." Ethan stopped packing and looked at her. "Not if we move quickly." Suddenly, a loud knock shook the door. Knock, knock. Lyra's eyes widened in terror, and she moved back, hiding behind the small table. Ethan signaled her to stay quiet. Another knock, harder this time. "Open. Security check." It was the cold, robotic voice of an alien enforcer. Ethan's mind raced. If they scanned the room, they would find Lyra's energy signature. He looked at her, and she looked back, tears welling in her glowing eyes. Ethan took a deep breath and opened the door just a crack. Outside stood two enforcers, tall and dark, with red glowing eyes under their metal helmets. Their armor was black, and strange symbols glowed on their shoulders. "Routine scan," one enforcer said, pushing the door open without waiting for permission. Ethan stepped back, his heart pounding. The enforcers entered the small room, their scanners buzzing as they swept them across the walls and floor. Lyra held her breath, hiding behind the table, pressing her hand over her mouth to stay silent. The scanner beeped. and the enforcer turned its head toward the table. Ethan moved quickly, dropping a heavy metal wrench on the ground to distract them. "Sorry," he said, forcing a tired laugh. "Just fixing things." The enforcer paused, scanning Ethan's face. Then it continued scanning the room. The second enforcer moved toward the table, its scanner light sweeping closer to Lyra's hiding spot. Lyra's eyes were wide with fear, tears slipping down her cheeks as she tried not to make a sound. Suddenly, the scanner's light flickered and the enforcer paused. It turned its head, looking around as if confused. Lyra's bandaged arm was glowing softly, hidden under her sleeve, but the energy was leaking into the room. Ethan knew he had to act. "Hey, if you're done, I need to get back to work," Ethan sighed, stepping closer, blocking the enforcer's path. The enforcer pushed Ethan back roughly, making him stumble. It raised its scanner again, pointing it at the table. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering, "Please." The scanner's light turned red. "Illegal energy detected," the enforcer's voice echoed. Ethan's eyes widened. "Run!" he shouted. Lyra jumped up, knocking the table over. The enforcer reached out, but Ethan swung his heavy wrench, hitting the scanner and sending sparks flying. "Go!" Ethan shouted again. Lyra ran toward the back door as the enforcers raised their weapons. Ethan threw another tool at them, buying her a few seconds. He followed her, grabbing his bag as they ran through the narrow hallway. Outside, the cold air hit their faces as they burst into the back alley. Behind them, the enforcers shouted, and the red lights of their scanners flashed like angry eyes. In the dark, this way. Ethan pulled Lyra's hand, leading her down the alley, dodging trash and broken crates. Blaster shots hit the walls around them, sending dust and sparks into the air. Lyra stumbled, but Ethan caught her, pulling her back to her feet. They turned a corner, running into an old market street, empty and broken. The buildings like skeletons under the gray sky. "Where are we going?" Lyra gasped, tears mixing with the dirt on her face. "To the tunnels," Ethan said, gripping her hand tightly. "We're getting out of here." Behind them, the sound of engines roared as patrol drones joined the hunt, their red eyes scanning, their weapons charging. Lyra looked back, fear in her glowing eyes, but Ethan squeezed her hand. "Don't look back," he said. "We're not done yet." Together, they ran into the broken city, the chase beginning, as the aliens hunted the girl who carried hope within her, and the human who chose to stand by her side. They ran until their legs burned. The old market street was silent, except for the sounds of their footsteps and the distant hum of patrol drones above. Broken stalls and shattered glass cracked under their shoes as they moved. Ethan held Lyra's hand tightly, pulling her through a narrow passage between two ruined buildings. They slipped into the shadows, hiding as a drone passed overhead, its red scanner light sweeping across the street. Lyra's breaths came fast, her chest rising and falling as she tried to stay quiet. Her silver hair stuck to her dirty face, and her glowing blue eyes flickered with fear. "Ethan," she whispered, "I can't." "Keep running." Ethan looked at her, seeing how pale she was, how weak she looked. He placed a hand on her shoulder, just a little further. "We're almost there." They moved again, quietly this time, through the broken streets until they reached a metal door hidden behind a collapsed wall. Ethan pushed the debris aside and pulled the door open, revealing a dark stairway leading underground. "This way," Ethan said. Lyra hesitated, looking into the darkness. But she trusted him. She stepped down, and Ethan followed, closing the door behind them. Darkness swallowed them, and the sounds of the city above faded. Ethan turned on a small flashlight, its weak beam lighting the narrow stairs as they descended into the old smuggler tunnels. The air was cold and smelled of rust and wet stone. Pipes dripped water, echoing in the silence. Lyra held onto Ethan's arm to keep from falling, her small fingers trembling. they reached a large chamber underground, with old crates and broken lights hanging from the ceiling. Ethan set down his bag and helped Lyra sit on an old blanket. Lyra pulled her knees to her chest, shivering in the cold. Ethan opened a food pack, handing it to her. She took it with shaking hands, eating slowly. Ethan sat across from her, watching her quietly. "Lyra," he said softly, "I need to know. Why are they after you?" Lyra froze, the food in her hand forgotten. Her glowing eyes lifted to meet his, and for a moment, Ethan saw the deep fear inside her. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If they find me, they will take it." "Out? Take what out?" Ethan asked gently. Lyra swallowed hard. She slowly pulled up her sleeve, showing the glowing lines on her arm again. She touched them lightly, and the lines pulsed with a soft light. "It's not just a crystal," Lyra said, tears filling her eyes. "It's alive." Ethan's eyes widened. "Alive?" Lyra nodded, her voice shaking. "They call it the seed of control. The aliens created it to control human minds, to break any rebellion before it starts. They put it inside me because I am half human, half them. They thought I would be the perfect carrier." Ethan felt a chill in the cold air of the tunnel. "Then why did you run?" Lyra wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Because it spoke to me." Ethan leaned forward. "Spoke?" Lyra nodded. "It told me it doesn't want to hurt people. It wants to help them break free. It showed me how to escape. It showed me how to fight back." Ethan tried to understand. "You mean the seed is on our side?" Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with hope and fear. "Yes, it has the power to break the control signals the aliens use to keep humans weak and scared. If I can reach a broadcast tower, I can release it. I can free your people." Ethan stood silently, trying to process everything. Lyra was just a girl, but inside her was the key to breaking the aliens' control over humanity. "But if the aliens catch you," Ethan started, "they will destroy it." Lyra finished, her voice soft. "And me." Ethan took a deep breath. Looking around the dark tunnel, he knew what this meant. The aliens would never stop hunting her. And if she was caught, the last hope for freedom would die with her. Lyra lowered her head, her hair falling over her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want you to be part of this." Ethan walked over and knelt in front of her, lifting her chin so she would look at him. "You don't have to be sorry," Ethan said firmly. "You're giving us a chance. And I'm not letting them take you." Tears slipped down Lyra's cheeks. "But it's dangerous." "I know," Ethan said, a small smile on his tired face. "But I'm tired of hiding. If there's a chance to fight back, we take it." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. She took Ethan's hand, her small fingers gripping his tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan squeezed her hand. Gently. "Rest now, we move at dawn." Above them, in the cold darkness of the ruined city, the patrols searched for the girl with the power to break their control. But deep underground, hope was alive, and for the first time, Ethan felt like he had something worth fighting for. The tunnels were cold and dark, but safer than the streets above. Lyra lay on the blanket, resting, her glowing eyes closed as she breathed softly. Ethan sat near the entrance, listening for any sounds from above. He felt the weight of everything pressing on him, the aliens, the patrols, the responsibility to protect Lyra, and the hope she carried within her. As dawn approached, a thin light seeped through the cracks in the tunnel ceiling, painting pale lines across the stone floor. Lyra woke, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. "Ethan," she said softly, "thank you for not leaving me." Ethan turned to her, giving a tired smile. "I promised I wouldn't." Lyra's eyes glowed softly in the dim light, and for a moment, she looked almost peaceful. But the moment broke when they heard footsteps echoing in the tunnel. Ethan stood quickly, pulling out his small scanner. The device flickered, showing a human signature approaching. He moved in front of Lyra, ready to protect her. A shadow appeared at the end of the tunnel, and then a familiar voice called out, "Ethan, is that you?" Ethan lowered the scanner slightly. "Mara?" Mara stepped into the light, her dark hair tied back, a small flashlight in her hand. She was one of the few people Ethan trusted in the city, a smuggler who knew how to avoid the patrols and get food when no one else could. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked, confused but relieved to see a friendly face. "I heard the patrols were looking for someone last night," Mara said, her eyes sharp. "I thought you might need help." Lyra peeked from behind Ethan, her glowing eyes meeting Mara's. Mara's eyes widened slightly, but she quickly hid her surprise. "This is her, isn't it?" Mara said softly. "The girl they're looking for," Ethan nodded. "She's not what they say she is, Mara. She can help us." Mara looked at Lyra for a moment, then back at Ethan. "The patrols are searching every street. You can't stay here for long. I know a way to the old broadcast tower outside the city. It's risky, but it's your best chance." Ethan felt hope rise in his chest. "Can you take us there?" Mara nodded. "But you need to move now, before the patrols tighten the net." Lyra stepped forward, clutching her bandaged arm. "Thank you, Mara." Mara smiled kindly, but there was something in her eyes that Ethan couldn't read. They packed quickly, grabbing the food packs and Ethan's tools. Mara led them through the tunnels, moving fast but carefully, checking corners before turning. The tunnels were old, filled with rusted pipes and dripping water, but they were hidden from the patrol drones above Dot as they moved. Lyra walked close to Ethan, whispering, "Can we trust her?" Ethan looked at Mara's back, then at Lyra. "She's helped me before." But Lyra's glowing eyes looked uncertain. They reached an old metal door, leading to a ladder that went up to an abandoned warehouse near the city's edge. Mara stopped and turned to Ethan and Lyra. "Once we get to the surface, we need to move fast. The patrols don't check this area often, but if they see us, they will call for backup." Ethan nodded. "We're ready." But before they could move, Mara reached into her pocket and pulled out a small communicator. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm sorry." Ethan froze. "Mara, what are you doing?" Mara's eyes were filled with tears. "They promised me they would leave me and my family alone if I turned her in. I didn't want to, but they're watching me. They know I found you." Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "No." Ethan stepped in front of Lyra, anger rising in his chest. "Mara, don't do this." "I'm sorry, Ethan," Mara whispered, pressing the button. Immediately, the communicator beeped, and a cold voice came through. "Signal received. Units moving to your location." Ethan's mind raced. He grabbed Lyra's hand. "We have to run." Mara cried out, reaching for Ethan. "They'll kill me if I don't." Ethan pulled Lyra past Mara, climbing the ladder quickly. Lyra climbed after him, tears streaming down her face. They pushed open the metal hatch, emerging into the cold morning air inside the abandoned warehouse. Below them, they could hear Mara crying and shouting, "I'm sorry." But there was no time to stop. Outside, the sky was gray, and the wind was cold. They could hear the engines of patrol ships approaching, the rumble of their machines getting louder. "Run, Lyra!" Ethan shouted, pulling her toward a broken wall that led out of the warehouse. Behind them, red lights flashed, and the cold voices of the alien enforcers echoed through the warehouse. "Target located." Lyra looked back, tears in her glowing eyes. Why did she betray us? Ethan held her hand tighter. "Fear makes people do terrible things, but we can't stop now." They ran through the empty yard, the cold wind hitting their faces, the sound of engines growing closer. Above them, the patrol drones hovered, scanning with red lights, searching for them. But Ethan and Lyra did not stop. They ran into the broken city, running toward the old broadcast tower, toward hope. Even as the aliens closed in around them, the cold morning air burned in their lungs as Ethan and Lyra ran through the broken city streets. Behind them, patrol drones buzzed like angry wasps, their red scanners sweeping across ruined buildings, searching for the girl who carried humanity's hope. Engines roared above, and the cold voices of alien enforcers echoed off cracked walls. Target is moving. Intercept. Lyra's glowing blue eyes were filled with fear and determination as she clung to Ethan's hand. Her silver hair flew behind her as they ran, dodging broken cars and piles of rubble. "Ethan," she gasped. "They're getting closer." "I know," Ethan said, pulling her into a narrow alley. Just a little further. Ahead, the old BROADCAS T-tower rose like a dark skeleton against the gray sky. Its rusted frame reached high above the city, cables swaying in the cold wind. It had been silent for years, but now it was their only chance. They reached the fence surrounding the tower. Ethan pulled out a small tool from his pocket, cutting the old lock. The metal fell with a soft clang, and they slipped through the gap. Moving quickly across the cracked ground toward the tower's base, blaster fire exploded against the ground behind them, sending dust and sparks into the air. Lyra screamed, falling to her knees, but Ethan pulled her up. "Keep moving," he shouted. They reached the door at the base of the tower. Ethan kicked it open, pulling Lyra inside. The dark hallway smelled of rust and dust, but it was safer. Then the open yard. They moved up the metal stairs, each step creaking under their weight. The higher they climbed, the louder the wind howled through the broken windows, and the smaller the city below seemed. Lyra stumbled, clutching her bandaged arm. The glowing lines pulsed faster now, as if they were alive, responding to the fear and urgency around them. "Ethan." "I'm scared," Lyra whispered. Ethan stopped, turning to face her. He placed his hands on her shoulders, looking into her glowing eyes. "I know," he said softly, "but you are stronger than you think." Tears slipped down Lyra's cheeks. "What if it doesn't work? What if they catch us?" Ethan shook his head. "Then we fight until the end." "But I believe in you, Lyra. I believe in what you're carrying." She looked at him, breathing hard, then nodded. "Okay." They reached the top floor, where the control room was. The old screens were cracked, and dust covered every surface, but the main control panel still stood, waiting. Ethan moved quickly, connecting the cables he had brought from the workshop to the panel. Lyra stood beside him, her hands shaking as she touched the cold metal of the console. "Place your hand here," Ethan instructed. Lyra pressed her glowing hand against the panel. The lines on her arm pulsed brightly, and the console flickered to life, screens glowing softly for the first time in years. Outside, patrol drones circled the tower, and enforcers gathered at the base, preparing to breach. Energy signature located. Prepare for capture. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing. She could feel the seed inside her, pulsing, speaking to her in a voice only she could hear. "Now, Lyra. Release me, and I will free them." Lyra took a deep breath. "I'm ready." She pushed her energy into the console. The glowing lines on her arms spread across her body, forming patterns of light on her skin. The screens around them flickered faster, and a low hum filled the air. Outside, the patrol drones froze mid-air, their red scanners flickering. Inside the control room, the seed's power flowed through the broadcast tower, reaching into the skies, sending out waves that cut through the alien control signals. Across the city, people hiding in the shadows looked up as the red lights of the patrols turned off one by one. The constant, invisible pressure in their minds faded, and for the first time in years, they felt free. The aliens shouted in confusion as their machines stopped responding. Weapons powered down, and drones fell from the sky like dead birds. Lyra screamed as the power flowed through her, tears streaming down her glowing face. Ethan grabbed her hand, grounding her, refusing to let her fall. "You're doing it, Lyra." Ethan shouted over the rising hum. "You're freeing them." The tower shook as the enforcers tried to break in below, but it was too late. The signal was spreading, reaching every corner of the city and beyond. breaking the chains the aliens had placed on humanity. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted, the glowing lines fading from her skin. The screens around them went dark, but the signal remained, alive and spreading. Ethan knelt beside her, holding her as she breathed heavily. "Is it done?" Lyra whispered. Ethan looked out the broken window, seeing the patrol drones crashing to the ground and humans stepping out of hiding, looking at the sky with hope in their eyes. "It's done," Ethan said, tears in his eyes. "You did it." Lyra smiled weakly, closing her eyes. Then it was. The city was quiet. For the first time in years, there were no patrol drones buzzing in the sky, no red lights scanning the streets, no cold voices demanding control. The broadcast tower stood tall, silent now, but the signal Lyra released was alive, spreading across the world, breaking the aliens' grip on humanity. Ethan and Lyra sat on the floor of the control room, the morning sunlight shining through the broken windows, painting warm lines across the dusty floor. Lyra's silver hair fell around her face, and her glowing blue eyes were tired but peaceful. She looked out at the sky, seeing the clear blue for the first time. "Is this what freedom feels like?" Lyra asked softly. Ethan smiled, looking out at the city below, where people were stepping out of hiding, holding each other, looking up with hope in their eyes. "Yes," Ethan said. "This is freedom." They sat in silence, listening to the sounds of the city waking up, the wind moving gently through the broken windows, carrying the scent of rain and earth. Suddenly, a loud sound came from below. Ethan stood quickly, looking out the window. In the streets, people were gathering, carrying tools, old weapons, and banners made from torn cloth. "They're coming together," Ethan said, his voice filled with hope. "They're ready to fight." Lyra stood, holding onto Ethan's arm for support. She looked down at the people, her eyes shining. "This is just the beginning," she said. Ethan nodded. "The aliens will come back. They won't give up easily." "I know," Lyra said, looking at him. "But now they won't be fighting a scared, broken people. They'll be fighting humans who know they can be free." Ethan looked at her, seeing the strength in her eyes. She was just a girl, but she had started something that could not be stopped. They left the tower, moving down the metal stairs carefully. When they stepped into the street, people turned to look at them. Some of them recognized Lyra, her glowing eyes, her silver hair. "It's her," someone whispered. "The girl who broke the signal. She saved us," another voice said. Lyra looked down shy, but Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "Don't hide," he said softly. "They need to see you." Lyra lifted her head, looking at the people, and gave them a small, tired smile. The crowd began to clap, softly at first, then louder, until the broken street was filled with the sound of hope. An old man stepped forward, holding a makeshift flag. "They will come back," he said. "But we will fight them," Ethan nodded. "We will stand with you." The people cheered, raising their hands and tools, ready to rebuild, ready to protect what had been given back to them. Lyra looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for not leaving me," she whispered. Ethan smiled, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Thank you for showing us we can fight." As the people began to organize, setting up watch groups and safe places for the injured, Lyra and Ethan helped where they could, bringing water, comforting the scared children, and helping fix the broken lights in the streets. That night, for the first time in years, the city was alive with small lights. Fires burned in barrels, not out of fear, but for warmth and gathering. Families came together, sharing food, telling stories of the world before the aliens came. Children laughed, running through the streets without fear of the patrols. And above them, the stars shone brightly, unblocked by the cold red glow of the patrol ships. Lyra sat beside Ethan on a broken wall, looking up at the sky. She pointed at the stars, her eyes glowing softly. "Do you think the stars are free too?" Lyra? Asked. Ethan chuckled softly. Maybe one day we'll find out. She smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder, feeling safe for the first time. In the distance, a loud cheer rose as someone managed to light up an old street lamp, and the people clapped, laughing and hugging each other. The world was still broken. The aliens were still out there. The fight was not over. But for now, hope was alive, and it had started with a girl who refused to be a weapon and a man who refused to leave her behind. Together, they had lit the first flames of rebellion.